Welcome to the United We Scan podcast, the podcast by rural carriers for rural carriers. The views expressed in this podcast do not reflect the views or opinions of the United States Postal Service or the National Rural Letter Carriers Association. We ask that you please consult your assigned union representative for guidance in your local area. Make sure you like this podcast, share with your fellow rural carriers, and subscribe to be notified each time a new episode is uploaded. Please rate this podcast 5 stars where applicable, and leave a comment or question for us below. Thank you. Now, here are the hosts of the United We Scan podcast.
Welcome back, everybody. Episode 65. This is our post mini mail survey episode, and we'll probably throw in some listener questions, comments as we go. How was your week, James?
It was about normal. I know I heard from a lot of carriers that it was terrible after the mini mail survey, and yeah, there was a bit more DPS errors in my mail than during the mini mail survey, but a lot of it was just the same old before it. So it wasn't really much of an issue. A lot of it was just a set of WSH that was put in upside down, or it was literally a specific set of mail was set upside down throughout the whole process. It was crazy to look at that point, but mostly it was about normal. A little heavier on the parcels this last week, especially Friday. I know some people got off super early compared to others, but it was pretty much normal overall. Saturday worked really well for me. Day off and got some relaxation in, and had to go work on the Model Railroad Museum because next weekend is our last weekend for public viewing of it. And it may, according to sources, it may actually be the last weekend forever. So it's kind of sad to hear that. Yeah, but unfortunately, when the owner passed away, there wasn't really much of a plan for it to continue on. So we'll have to figure out what they're going to do over the summer with it. But other than that, how was your week, Bill?
Oh, it started off heavy. It petered out through the course of the week. I had some young lady from north central part of the country rub it in that, she was almost done her route. And while we were still talking, said, "Oh, I am done my route." I'm not going to mention Kristen by name. So, and not mentioning Kristen by name, I turned around and
hey! Make sure you're not mentioning Kristen by name.
No, not Kristen. Kristen. Anyway, my sub of record had a funeral to attend yesterday, so I volunteered to come in and cover my own route. And people were looking at me like, "Bill's on a Saturday." And I said yes. And I was going to bring in donuts until I found Gigi was back. And Gigi's our supervisor, not a supervisor on the city side. And she can sell food from 3/4 of a mile away. So I didn't bring food in for the carriers, which disheartened a lot of them because they know when I come in on Saturdays, I always bring stuff in. But this lady, so help me God, I've never seen somebody with an ear or nose for food. One day we had a discussion about a birthday cake for a carrier, and she was over there in 48 seconds. And she goes, "You have cake over here?" It's like, how the hell did you hear that? I mean, she's almost a football field away, and she heard us talk about cake. But no, it was Saturday wasn't a bad day. The weather's beautiful. It was perfect. Maybe 62 degrees out. Very, very light wind, and everybody was out. The dogs, kids, the customers. So yeah, it was enjoyable, and I really like being out there. Taking care of my route instead of having it massacred by it being split by the subs who don't know my route. So, I gave up a day with my grandson, but I got the opportunity to serve my route and my customers, and I was happy about that. And Stacy got a day off without any. How was your week, Kristen? Early, Kristen, early, off, done, early, Kristen.
Well, Monday was a Monday. I got back to the office about 4:30. Well, a little after 4. 4:30ish, I guess. And went and took did a last hour and a half overtime on the other route that the new sub was her first day on her own on a Monday. And she got all turned around, and I talked to her twice while I was on the route. She called me, and I got her back on the route the first time. The second time, she was just in hysteric tears. So trying to call the office because she had to get back. She had to pick up her kid from daycare and all this stuff, and nobody was answering the phone. I told her just head back. And when I literally pulled in the driveway right behind her, so I went in, got supervisor, let supervisor know what was going on. She come out and was trying to calm her down, and I just said, look, I said I'll go ahead and I'll take this and finish it off. It won't take me very long. I guess, I don't know if she felt rushed to get out, but she did the load truck for the packages to get them in sequence order, but she didn't mark them, so that threw her off. And when she loaded the truck on her own with the extra trays of mail, she didn't load the trays in and didn't move them around, and so I basically had to rerun that small little part of the route to catch up to where she left off with DPS, which she didn't have a lot left, but a few packages she missed at the very beginning of the route, so about an hour and a half is all it took me to get it done and get back to the office, so it was no big deal. And
Such a mama
then,
bear.
I know, right? Tuesday was light. I was back to the office by 1:30, was doing some case maintenance, clocked out just shy of 2 o'clock. Wednesday was lighter. I was back and clocked out by 1:30 on Wednesday. Thursday I was off for my daughter's OB appointment. And then Friday I was done, just after 2 o'clock. So, yeah, that was a day.
Just rubbing it in.
Bill calls me and he's like, how's it going? I'm like, I don't know, I got about 15, 20 minutes left of the route. And he's like, shut up. I'm like, yeah, I know. And then we're still yakking away. And I was like, oh, I hate to tell you, but I just tossed my last box. Yeah, you can imagine what he said to me at that point. I let him go when I pulled into my parking spot and had to put my stuff away. But and then Saturday was my K-Day, and so I was off, and it was my birthday yesterday, and my daughter went and picked up my other daughter after school on Friday, so I had both my girls home. My bonus son showed up yesterday. My parents came up and visited. It was the first long trip my parents have taken since my dad's hip replacement in January, so that was awesome to see them. Eric's niece and her boyfriend came over, which I had never met them before, so that was really awesome. And then my RCA, actually stopped by after he was done with work, and Aaron, he had to run after work and stuff. He stopped by and hung out for a little bit with us. He tried to take off with my bottle of Blackberry Crown. I did stop him. But then today we did. Oh yeah, me and the kids and the boyfriend and my daughter's new friend went down to a little reptile expo and then went and did a little shopping, lunch, and came home with a crested gecko, and then got home and discovered that my daughter's cat had 3 kittens underneath her bed while we were gone today. That's been my week in a nutshell. And get to go back to work tomorrow and run a full week for a change. I haven't ran a full week in several weeks between training and having weekends off for the tattoo expo and
Yes, we know.
spring booster and daughter's doctor's appointments. Yeah, I actually have a full week this week. I get to work Monday through Friday.
Boy, she's making people that can't get a day off jealous, isn't she?
Mm.
Not only is she getting done early, but now she's making them jealous by being able to take all this time off.
Oh no, it's like I went regular and got an RCA or something. I even told my RCA yesterday when he stopped by last night. I said, dude, if you ever want a weekend off or you need a Saturday off, I said, just let me know. I'm more than happy to DACA R it and take off the following Friday so I could have a 3-day weekend. But no, I've told him a few times if he ever needed a weekend or needed a Saturday off to just let me know. It's not a big deal. I'll work.
Yep. Because
No
we're all in
problem
this
for me.
together.
Exactly. And I know what it's like. I did it forever. If you need it off, you need it off. Whether it's, you got your son or you got your kid or you just want a weekend off because you want to do something on the weekend, just say, hey, I kind of want to make plans this coming Saturday or next Saturday or whatever Saturday. Yeah. If I got nothing else going on, no big deal to me.
How was your week, Josh?
Oh, wasn't too bad up until about 5 o'clock this evening when went to pick up dinner and sitting at the light waiting for a clearing to turn onto the arm ramp, and the woman behind me's foot slipped off the brake. Now I have a nice little ding in the trunk, hatchback, whatever you want to call it, tailgate thing on the wife's car. So we'll see how that plays out.
All right. So it's after the mini mail survey. Everybody should have gotten their mini mail survey count sheets back. And if you agreed with them, you signed them. If you wanted the high option and had the 10 years of credible service to get the high option, you could select that as well. It's hard to know whether you're going to get the high option or not with the mini mail survey and the rec system as it stands, which I still don't understand why they can't figure that stuff out. But that should have been done Friday and been input Friday evening by 5 o'clock. And if that wasn't done, then you can still dispute that. Um, there's been a lot of talk going on about what management has been doing and things like that. So we wanted to go over what are your rights in this situation? What can you do? What is the procedures that we have in place after a mini mail survey? I know we talked about this previously on many aftermath uh, podcast episodes. So we're going to talk about it again because it is fresh in our minds. It's something that's happening to us, and it is still a problem with management. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is what is the response you have when you get back your evaluations at the end of this month? They're supposed to be in at the end of this month. So what's the process? Anybody want to tell us what is the things that we are looking for on our 42, 41 M's and A's that we're going to get?
Well,
Zero.
I was just before we get into that, I was just going to say, so what you're saying is it's a red flag that local management didn't print out our numbers to verify them until Thursday evening, and then was calling a carrier at 5:30 on Friday to question one of the corrections she had.
We'll get there. That's part of it. But it is a red flag if management did not have them available for review ahead of the closing time of them on Friday. Because that gives management ample opportunity to review the numbers, make sure that they're supposedly accurate and things like that. They should have had those done by Wednesday. They should have had them on your desk by Thursday morning, so you had at least a day to review them to make sure they were right. But the fact is, a lot of managers wait until the very, very last minute to do anything. And they don't give you ample time to make sure all your numbers are right or anything like that. And it irritates the crap out of me that they don't do that. But unfortunately, you should have been reviewing your numbers every day yourself, making sure the numbers are accurate. But there is a process in place that is outside of the grievance process. And it is the only process we can use to argue numbers on the mini mail survey as well as our 4241As and 4241Ms. And that is
Dispute process.
exactly. The only
Well,
answer
I
you
want to dispute you on this because you said we're supposed to check our numbers every day. How about if
yes,
we don't get our end of day sheets every day?
you're supposed to get your end of day sheets every day, supposedly. You're supposed to get your radar report every day, supposedly. Management failing to do that is grievable. It is not
That's
part of the
what I was.
dispute process.
That's what I was talking about. Thursday afternoon is when they printed all the end of day papers.
Yes, and that's wrong. Management should be printing these numbers every single day. They should be printing the radar report and the end of run report for everybody. The end of day report comes the next day after, because sometimes the end of day report is not completely finished at the close of business on the day because we have carriers that are on routes that last beyond the end of day. So it would come in the next morning, would be the appropriate time for them to print the previous day's end of day report. Management not doing that is a problem, but I personally have a problem with it not being accessible on a system that we can actually view it ourselves online, so that way we don't have to waste paper because they're not mailing it anywhere. It's costing the post office money every time they print that paper every single day. We should have a digital version of it to be able to view it, but they're not even giving us that.
Now, your end of day report is going to be different than your end of run report, which they can access in the mornings. Because that's
Yes.
your numbers of your end of run is they have to pull that up for city side anyways.
Yes.
Well, I'm going to say the end of run information, all of that is on the radar report.
But it's a way to verify the radar report is accurate.
Mm-hmm. And let's not forget that the radar report, the numbers are delayed anyways. They're not
On
for that
flats
day.
and on flats and such.
Yep.
But the dispute process is the only way to argue numbers for your evaluation. I've heard reports out there, and you guys can check me on this, but it's been posted in a lot of groups that there is management out there that is turning around and saying your numbers are too high. These are way over what you usually have on the route, so on and so forth. That is benchmarking. Benchmarking is grievable. Benchmarking means that management thinks that you should only have these numbers and no higher. And that is not how you evaluate. You can't have everybody right in the middle where everybody's in the middle. An evaluation has highs and lows. But if everything's in the middle, you don't get that spread to give you the accurate evaluation. And sometimes they are a lot higher. I saw somebody who said they had 630 returns because they have an apartment complex and people moving in, moving out, things like that. Plus, they don't put in the apartment number. And that's a big one. If it is not in address order, it is a random letter in your DPS. It is a DPS error. Even if it's in the block with the apartment complex and you know which apartment it goes into, it is still considered a DPS error because the apartment number is not on there and it didn't put it in the apartment sequence. But a lot of managers are arguing that it doesn't count. And Bill, what do you say to that?
File, file, file. Smile.
Don't let them benchmark you. It's the same with unscanned parcels. It's the same with the amount of time it takes you to do your end of shift duties. It's the same with the amount of time it takes you to load the truck. The same as the amount of time it takes you to do your stuff in the office. It takes what it takes, and the numbers are what they're going to be. And any manager who is turning around and cutting your numbers is falsifying a document. And you need to use that word falsification and falsify.
This falls right into a listener message that I got, and I do apologize for just seeing this today, and it was sent on the 5th. I have a lot of my notifications are silent, so I don't get everything right away. So I do apologize to this listener. I'm going to read this real quick because this kind of falls a little bit into that. But then again, it falls in with falsification too. It says, I'm sorry to bother you in your personal messenger. I listen to the podcast weekly. It has helped me so much. I feel I can trust your judgment on this matter. I have a problem I was afraid to share concerning my postmaster. I think my postmaster is changing our times. During count, he does not like it when you are doing end of shift duties, and he wants to go home and keep our times at minimum. He has been walking out when I come back to the office. I asked him if he was clocking me out, and he stated he was putting numbers in, and my clock out would override his numbers. The clerk checked it behind his back, and it did not override. I also think he could be using our lunch times that we do not use to make his budget look better, since we usually do not take only 5 or 10 minutes. Our routes have been cut, and we very seldom make evaluation. I've been trying to find a way to view my times. I tried the virtual time card and it states I'm not a city carrier. Do you have ideas on how I can view my times to see if he is falsifying? Thank you so much.
Request the time certificate before they submit at the end of the week or pay period.
Before the end of pay period, request the time certificate of the times on your time card and compare them to your 4240. Because according to our contract that they ratified for the 2021 through 2024, which is still in effect and will be in effect until we sign a new contract, it states that the 4240 is still the standard for our times. They are supposed to be supposedly inputting the times on our 4240s into the timesheets on the computer. And if it is inaccurate, then you have to talk with your designated union representative, because falsifying time on a carrier's records is a federal offense. It is a felony, because that's through the Department of Labor. It is the Fair Labor Standards Act. And we are supposed to be on the clock when we are working.
So we should call
Go
Bridget,
ahead.
right?
You should be contacting your designated union rep and they can take it up the chain. But if they are falsifying your time records, then you definitely need to contact your designated union representative, have your step 1 discussion, and then file your step 1 grievance with it.
Alrighty. So there is your answer.
And remember, with the supervisors, managers, 204Bs, OICs, whatever, who are telling you that your numbers are skewed and they can't put these in, that is benchmarking. And benchmarking is illegal. It is a predetermined number that they're willing to accept. Well, like every route isn't same as the route next to it or the one across the aisle. Benchmarking cannot be allowed because you do run into situations where you have excessive amount of missorts upside down. You have parts of other routes, buried in your DPS. All those numbers, and as far as I know, 500 was the high number that they were allowing without benchmarking coming into play. It is illegal for them to change those numbers or request you to change those. Those are the numbers. Stand by them.
And this comes directly from national leadership. They actually passed it down through the steward system on how to file a grievance on benchmarking. So your steward will know how to file a grievance on benchmarking. And
And Bill,
if they don't, they need to contact their DR or their ADR for assistance, because there is a guide out there for benchmarking grievances.
from what I was told from someone, is that 500 number.
Yep.
It throws a warning at them. Just like when you were mapping, if it was too far away, it threw a warning, but it does not prevent them from entering it.
Correct.
Correct. Just like all the warnings for people that have trailer parks where the CBU is centralized in the trailer park, and then they have to go to the far back end of the park to deliver a package to the door, and it says you're too far away from your mail stop. It's the same thing.
Yep. And it's just
You
a
can
threshold warning. It's not an error per se.
exactly. It doesn't preclude you from completing the task. It's just asking you, are you sure that this number is right? It's a verification. It's not supposed to be a benchmark. It's supposed to just say, are you sure you wanted to hit a 9 here? Or something like that, basically. That's what it's saying.
No, I wanted to hit 1100, but I figured that was pushing it. Since my DPS was 1102, I figured, I might be fudging that one.
Yeah, I would say that's nearly a full tray of DPS, but Joe, go ahead.
So that's one of the things that's going on. Another thing that's been going on, and I've been seeing this in a lot of places, is that management is dividing everything by 4, using the upside down standard for even the random letters and things like that. That is still wrong. Only inverted letters in your DPS are a 1 for 4 system. Every 4 inverted equals 1 random letter. Everything else is 1 for 1.
Yeah.
So just be mindful of what management is doing. And if they are doing something wrong, call them out on it. Be like, hey, I think this is incorrect. This is not supposed to be divided by 4. These are supposed to be 1 to 1. Things like that. Then you're going to get your evaluations back. They're saying March 30th. We'll see. But when you get them back, go through them.
And
Find everything.
They will give you your 4241A, but you have to ask for your 4241M. Management is not required to print that one out. So please ask if they do not. I mean, some management's decent about it and they'll print both for you. I know my management's pretty good about printing both out for everybody, but if they only print out the A, you do have to request the M, and they are supposed to print that M out for you.
Yep. And another thing they were talking about is the service talk time. That's one that people were arguing about, the miscellaneous time for that.
And I know we covered that in our last
yes.
In our last
we covered
bit.
that. You should be checking your 4241A and your 4241M for it to be actually in the service talk slot.
Yes, they allowed them to put it into the miscellaneous time the last 2 many mail surveys. However, that was to stop, and they are supposed to put it into the RMSS system every time they do a stand-up service safety talk. That time they are supposed to input every single time they do one, not just at many mail survey under miscellaneous time anymore. That's why nobody got the safety service talk time under the miscellaneous time this time around, because they are supposed to be doing it the way they're supposed to have been doing it from the very beginning, and they weren't. which is
Just
entering it into the RMSS system every time they do it.
But that just proves that just like we didn't get training on the rec system, management didn't get training on the rec system, and so they had to fix the mistakes that they were making as they went along, which is why the safety service talks were on the miscellaneous time. And speaking of miscellaneous time, this has been more stopping for a regular delay due to trains. Yes, we get a credit for train crossings, but the issue is there are a lot of routes that go through areas where the train will stop, back up, block the crossing for a while. I saw a post from a carrier that had to sit for 2.5 hours because the neighborhood they were in had 3 exits to it, and all 3 of them were blocked by the same train. When you are constantly delayed by a train for an extended amount of time, 10, 20 minutes a day, that should be a miscellaneous time. It is actually listed in the manual as part of the miscellaneous time. There are some managers that are removing that time because, oh, you get the credit for the train crossing, so we don't have to put it in for there anymore. Or it's already built in. It's only already built in because you put it in miscellaneous time. You have to keep putting it in to keep it built in. So if they're taking out miscellaneous time that you rightfully deserve, you have a dispute. Anybody else got mini mail survey stuff to talk about?
Well, I would say in regards with the dispute, just make sure you have the numbers or documentation to show that you should have gotten credit.
And each dispute that you have has to be on its own. If you have 3 different disputes about your new evaluation, you need to file 3 different dispute forms, one for each, and have the backing documentation for each dispute.
And on a side note, welcome, Toasty. How was your week?
I only worked about half the week. Had to take a couple of days off, one for an appointment, and then I took off Saturday. My wife wanted to do a big hoopla for her birthday, but sorry, getting here late. Just everything that could go wrong today went wrong, so but I'm here now.
And we're happy you're here. Yes, well, happy birthday to your wife. My birthday was yesterday.
And happy birthday to you. I was like, okay, well, now I know, my wife's 1 week and then yours another week and then my nephew's is the next day. So
That's going to be our August is going to be full. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. Anybody else have it? Go ahead, Bill.
And just for a reminder, the disputed items can only be where you have questions on zeros on your form and feel that there should be a time credit, your office walk, your route length, regular, centralized, and total boxes, daily dismount distances, daily activities, miscellaneous time, and option election. Those are the only things you can dispute. Items outside of that have to go through the grievance process, which will be held in abeyance until they get your dispute settled. So remember, those are the items you can dispute.
Will you repeat those items again, Bill?
It's your any entry of zero, that's questionable number for your form on your 4241A that we would expect to have a time credit, your office walk distance, your route length, regular, centralized, or total box, daily dismounts, the daily dismount distance, your daily activities, miscellaneous time, and your option election. And your option elections only apply to carriers with more than 10 years of career status.
Yep, 10 years from your computation date. So if you were a PTF and you then go full-time, that the day you start from as your PTF, the day you go career, counts towards your computation date
So there's any military service that you had
that you bought back.
that you bought back?
All right. Do we want to get into just some listener comments? I have a good one here.
Sure. Let's go for
All right.
it.
I'm pulling up the YouTube comments. We haven't done this in a while, guys. And then I have a lengthy report from a 2022 state conference that outlines some pretty good stuff here. So well, let me get into this was the most recent one. And this was commented 2 days ago. It says, "Why are they cutting 47 and 48 evaluations? I've never worked for a company that you take one step forward, then you take 2 steps back. If you can handle the route, why are they cutting them? It's another way for them to take away." Well, to answer the 47 and 48 evaluations, even in the contract, it says that 47 and 48 Ks are interim evaluations, meaning that they are considered overburdened once you reach a 47, 48. And those are the ones that will can be slated to be chopped.
And the reason that
Go ahead, James.
the reason that is because there is nothing higher that you can get paid than 48. So if your route were to grow from that 48, you would then go into 49 that you wouldn't be paid for. You'd be giving an hour free to the Postal Service. Cutting the routes back to 43 allows room for growth on the route if that were to happen. Now, I understand there's a lot of places where growth's not going to happen. My route will very rarely have any growth at all on it, other than the boxes that are there actually be going from vacant to active. So that's where that comes in, is because a lot of rural routes, especially in areas where it's very rural, would have growth as subdivisions get built and things like that. So it's giving room for that to happen if it were to happen in your area.
And management does have the right to cut you all the way down to 43K. However, they're not required to cut you down to 43K. If it makes more sense to just cut off one street that is already next to another carrier or another route, it's going to make more sense for them to just cut that street off. And even though it only brings you down to 44K, maybe 45K, if it keeps you squared off and they know that you're not going to have any more growth on your route, that's something that you can try to argue and go ahead and try to put that into your, whenever they ask you, hey, what should be cut off, carrier input.
Also, if you agree to take a K day that's a Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, then they technically don't have to cut you below a 45.
If you're not in the formula office.
Correct.
If you're not in formula, yes.
Well, I was just going to make that point. The key to that, though, is you have to volunteer for the day off.
Yes.
If the route already has Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and you bid onto it, you didn't volunteer for it, so you won't get that additional bonus option. Or if they redo your formula and they ask for your suggested days, and they'll tell you they'll count that as a volunteer. If you say I went Tuesday and they say no, you have to take Wednesday, that still would not count.
But if it was when they wanted you to take Wednesday and you said, I'll take Wednesday, and they agreed to it, then it's voluntary.
That one falls into that double-edged sword. It could or couldn't, but yes.
All right, we have another one that was actually a comment left on episode 16, our activity scan, aka carrier discretion episode from over a year ago. And this one was from 8 days ago, and it says, "So I'm actually supposed to be hitting authorized dismount when I go back for more mail and packages at my CBU? Question mark. I have 3 at one spot, and I make at least 3 trips, if not more, every day. Oh my goodness." This shows the lack of management's training and yes.
Yeah, exactly. It's sad when they just print out the PowerPoint and throw it at you and say, here's your scans. No. I'm a half CBU route, half curbside route. And one of my first stops is about 7.5, 16 unit CBUs. The last one, the half one, is a 12 unit. And that one takes me several trips to do because, I can only hold so much DPS. It gets the most DPS out of all my CBU stops. And my other ones that are 5 units, I can usually do those in like 2-3 trips. I have one that's only 3 units and they're all only 12s. I can do that in 1 to 2 trips depending on how bulky the parcels are. But yeah, every time you get off and do extra trips at your authorized dismounts when you're servicing them, you put that number in, authorized dismount. It took you 4 trips, 5 trips, 6 trips. You put that in, hit enter, get back in your vehicle, drive to the next stop.
Here's one from a previous episode that wanted to remind us. I just kind of say this because I just read it. It says the C is silent in miscellaneous. I think I kind of sometimes say miscellaneous at times, but thank you for
Sometimes.
that.
Yeah, supposedly.
Supposedly.
She
Thank you
uses
for that.
she uses carrier discretion on that.
Yeah.
I thought that was the Michigan accent.
Could be too.
Northern Michigan.
Yeah. Like down south where you say y'all instead of you all.
Mm-hmm.
It's just quicker to say y'all.
Y'all.
No, it's you, me, and y'all's.
Or use
Humans.
guys.
Use guys is
Hey,
a Philly, New
you
York thing.
guys.
All right, I'm gonna read this summary that this carrier had to submit for their 2022 state conference convention. This, I'm not, no names, no offices, but let me tell you, this kind of really is well written and it really puts it out there, especially for you for those that have never attended a state convention or the union stuff. I think this is really good. I was hoping to have it last week, but I didn't. So I'm going to share with you. Just bear with me. It is kind of long, but I think you guys will definitely get the gist of what they're saying. It says, though this was an astonishing first-time experience, it was by no means a vacation, and in some ways much more work than that of being a rural carrier. These 3 days consisted of an information overload, networking with carriers across the state, and having the ability to make my voice heard in hopes to make the union better for future generations. Some of the main things I learned was how the union works across all levels, be it at a local, state, or national level, along with seeing generational objectives, concerns, and viewpoints. I also got to further inform myself with current changes, challenges, and concerns with our new national contract with the United States Post Office. Though I do not believe I can make this a report of everything I learned without it being 10 pages long, I'll do my best to summarize my experiences. Let's start out with what I witnessed with the inner works of the union itself. It appears that there are different tiers from local to national. Now, local should really be split into 2 different sections. At the base, there is the office you operate out of. From there is the county level. After that is the district level and state. Finally, at the top is national, where everything gets hashed out with politicians. Now, every level is weighted differently due to county union members. What I already knew was that you had an office and a county representative. I was not aware that each district had their own reps as well. At a state level, you have different positions as well, from president, vice president, secretary, treasurer, and finally junior executive. Though I was pleasantly surprised and disappointed at how political these positions are, it was still a learning experience. When it came to voting for the people to fill the positions, they each got to voice their own reasons on why we should vote for them. However, as a first-timer, most of their words meant nothing to me, and I lacked the passion I had hoped to see. Lack the passion I hoped to see. You, as a first-timer, most of the words meant nothing to me. However, as a first-timer, most of the words meant nothing to me and lacked the passion I'd hoped to see. You can see the bias across the room on who people wanted in office. Now the question is whether or not it has to do with the majority being older than dirt and change terrifies them, or them not wanting to take the chance someone else can do the job better, or maybe it's both. Either way, it's disappointing, but that's just one man's opinion. All that being said, it was nice to see the cut and dryness of it all. No overdrawn debates between two parties, just this is who I am and this is why you should vote for me. Though they say that with wisdom comes with age, I would disagree. Wisdom comes with failures and challenging experiences. By no means am I calling this generation of carriers unwise, ignorant, or uninformed. There is definitely a generational gap. You find with younger people wanting to take bigger leaps of faith due to their own lack of experiences. That in turn allows for great strives to step in and help guide the new ideas, not shut it down. They should be the mentors while also allowing the passion to continue. With that being said, it allowed me to look at things from a different perspective and be a bit more political. I must have a bit more salesman approach that will target people who aren't nearly as willing to change or see things from a different perspective. Not everyone seeing things as straightforward as you may not understand. This forces you to expand your vocabulary and people skills. Debates are a whole different experience on their own. They can be intimidating, challenging, and absolutely fun, all at the same time. Whether state constitutional or national contractual, this is your time to shine. This is when you get to voice your opinions and stand up for what you want to see changed. For there is a bit of legwork to be done. First off, you must make sure you have an idea. Secondly, address it and put it into words. Finally, elaborate on it and make it sound like a legal document. Thoroughness is key here. If you have an issue you would like to see changes made to, unless it is apparent you have taken the time to make it cut and clear with the loopholes filled, it won't be passed. The best example of that was when my office wanted to see changes made in the OJA, on the job instructor position. We had 1 to 2 sentence amendments that left too much unclear and easily abusable. This was not passed, to say the least. However, a non-delegate had a whole new contractual idea that was 4 pages long. They had made it very clear how this new system would work and how much thought had been put into it. Though it was very long, it was at the same time very understandable and everything was clear. Another thing with debates that was a new experience was the formality of them. The formality was that of something I'd never experienced. It felt as though you were in a Senate meeting. You had to be called on at the microphone, state who you were, whether you were for or against the proposal, and then finally get to speak your mind. What was probably the most amazing thing about this was that even if you were debating with someone at the end of it, both sides respected the opinions of each other, win or lose the vote. This was what really felt like a connection with all my peers. This was when we came together and there was a passion for the union. This was the part that made me feel like I was actually doing something for the future. Oh boy, arguably the most important reason I was at state, but also close to the driest part of it all, contractual lessons and clarifications. This was the part I took the most amount of notes on. One of the biggest concerns of this entire trip was recs. My focus of this was scans. You're only to be clocking in and out once per day device, even if you are running part of or whole other route. The only scans that should be duplicated are vehicle loading, both start and end. When running another route, you need to switch to that route and do your begin and end load scans. Then finish your day, switch to the original route, and clock out. With missorts and expresses, you should be switching to each route the packages are assigned to. This ensures that those routes get the credit for those extras that didn't go out with the carrier. Service talks and deviations still need to be tracked manually and put on your timesheet to ensure you still get paid for them. The start deviation option is only for express mail. One of the biggest concerns of REX is how it'll affect the pay of routes. Come to find out, the majority of routes will either stay the same or rise in pay. Now guys, remember this was done before REX went into effect. The rec system is so heavily based on everyone doing their part because if you have an RCA not doing their scans, it has the potential to tank the average work done for the route. It really makes you communicate with your regulars and work together. For example, if you must take multiple trips for a hardship or CBU, make sure you're adding those to your extra trips. Something else that I found out to be very interesting was that the SPM requests are also called mini mail surveys. This is all part of the average for pay and volume. The route average is based off an entire year's worth of data. Addresses that are new and not on the routing map will be added over time when you continue to make stops at those mailboxes. This is when your scanner drops breadcrumbs on your route map. Finally, I found out the amount of resources the Union and USPS offer. Programs like PAC, Political Action Committee, Provident Guild, which they have discontinued participating with, EAP, Employee Assistance Program, and TSP, Thrift Savings Plan. Now, EAP and TSP I already knew about, but was given further knowledge of them, such as there isn't a TSP for RCAs. It isn't until you become career that you are eligible. Then how in-depth EAP goes with mental health of carriers that is offered to all, no matter your position. PAC and Provident Guilds were both new to me in the services they offer. PAC is a nonpartisan organization that helps with lobbying for laws to benefit carriers. They are the ones that talk with the aides and sometimes face-to-face with legislators. This is beneficial for new contractual changes, especially if there are more politicians that are aware of our challenges. And then it goes on to talk about Provident Guild, which we no longer participate with. And it says, my notes are insufficient, but it is to my understanding they originally priced life insurance policies for those, but we no longer participate with Provident Guild, so I'll leave that part out. After all of this, I have had more questions answered than I realized I had. With that, though, it also creates more questions that require more research on my own time. For example, what is OWCP? The HR 306, HR 4268, and the HR 3278. Those have already been put to rest in new bills proposed, so we don't have to worry about those anymore. Beyond that, it'll come down to me reading the contract to familiar myself with it further. This has also allowed me to gain a larger passion for what it means to be part of the NRLCA and the potential it has. I have my work cut out for me, but I look forward to expanding and pushing the union into the future by laying out the groundwork. This was a first-timers. This person was an RCA at the time. Unfortunately, they are no longer with the Postal Service due to other reasons. But I think as a first-timer, this plays it out pretty good. What do you guys think?
I think that's pretty much spot on, nail on the head.
That
Or-
was basically my experience also going to SWAC. I'd been part of the union since I got recruited at RCA Academy. And I just kind of, went to the local meetings, went to the count meetings because the regulars told me, hey, this is going to be really useful for when you become regular and everything like that. But going to an actual convention and sitting through all the different lectures, all the, OWCP, resolutions, every other, lesson that they give out there is very informative, which is why after we did the SWAC episode, I was saying, get to one. It's going to be informative. You're going to learn a lot. You're going to meet a lot of new people. And, regardless of what's going on, our RECS and everything like that, it's still a good time to go. It's still a good place to go to get good information.
Mm-hmm. And he did compare the difference between, some of the resolutions that were left with gray areas as opposed to that 4-page resolution that James submitted.
That sounded very familiar.
I thought it would. Yes, because like I said, this was from 2022. So this wasn't last year. This was 2022. But, honestly, people, that really is a synopsis of how state conventions are. And for a first-timer, that was pretty cut and dry as to what we experience at state conventions. And with those coming up in June.
And the other thing is, and it's a shame we've lost this individual, is that they recognize that they have to put in their own time in regards to researching, contract, um, the 603, the M38, all the different forms you have to, you're required to fill out and have knowledge of. And it's a shame because this is a perfect example. If you don't invest in your job, you're not going to get any return on it.
Hmm.
And that's a shame. That's an awful shame because they also pointed out that it's a lot of work. And we as hosts, we have firsthand knowledge, especially at the national convention, how much work you're putting in till 10 o'clock at night just to get things lined up for the next day. It's not a party atmosphere. There is some socializing, but until after Thursday night caucus night, there's no time to relax.
No, and any of the pictures that you see that people, it looks like a party with the banquets or people sitting out on patios. That's after we've put a full 8, 9, 10 hours in on the convention floor, and we all need to decompress for a little bit before we hit the hay and do it all over again the next day. That's all that is. It's not a party. That's for sure.
No, Kristen, I just looked. We still have a Providence Guild representative as of the March-April newsletter in North Carolina.
Really?
Yes.
Huh.
So
yeah.
I know there was issues, and I know the national board last year sat down with the Providence Guild board, but nothing was put out one way or another after that. But yeah, like I said, I know as of our most recent newsletter, there is a Providence Guild representative listed.
Yeah, no, ours is not. I remember that coming down at a state board meeting and was taken out of everything for ours. But yeah, I mean, technically, I don't. There wasn't even a Provident Guild person there at National Convention last year.
All right, this question has come up in our chat. Does anyone actually have local meetings? I know our office city carriers do, but never the rural. So does anybody want to explain how the rural local meetings work? I know there are a couple states that don't have local meetings, they just have their state meetings. But for a lot of places, how they work. Bill, go ahead.
Ooh, we just had one. Our local meetings, I'm secretary treasurer for our local meetings, and the reason being is that it's a lot of work. And we have our meetings. Sometimes they're closed for union members only. And this past one was an open one so that non-union members could attend. Now, in our chapter, Delchester, we also provide food. So it's an enticement to come and learn. You have a local representative or ADR, at least an ADR, attending it for the NSS. You have a state representative, which is usually an executive committee person that will attend. And then you have your three officers, your president, vice president, and your secretary treasurer. The local meetings that we have are at least 4 times a year based on our local chapter's constitution. Every year before our June state convention, we have to submit information about the 4 dates that we want to have them. They're not set in stone, but they're approximate, so they spread out throughout the year. And we generally try to have one right after the national convention, and we have one beginning of November, and then late January, February, and then another one in April, May, depending on when our state convention is, because we have to have everything submitted to the state 45 days prior to the convention, such as the delegates attending the state convention, book grants, constitutional resolutions for the state and national. During these meetings, we give a report of the treasurer's report, and that is rectified usually at the September meeting, in which people will do an audit on there to make sure all the finances are in line. Then we do a old business reading, which is anything that didn't get resolved at the previous. and then we start into the new business, and ours just concluded. So we were doing the business meeting about the mini mail survey, how to file disputes, what items can be disputed, what can be grieved. Uh, Unfortunately, our ADR in attendance for our meeting kept referring everybody back to me to answer the question. It's like, okay, why do we need you here? Well, because by constitutional law for the state of Pennsylvania, they have to have an NSS representative there.
Mm-hmm.
After we do the formal discussions of the business of our local chapter, we then close the meeting as far as official business, and we open the floor. And the floor is open to the National Steward System representative, and it's open to the state executive committee person. And then we also have somebody from the auxiliary there presenting items for sale and points of interest that the auxiliary is doing. And basically, we go into about an hour and a half to almost 2 hours per meeting. It's one of those things where I keep track of the non-union members who attend, and they get one opportunity to attend. They're offered a 1187 to fill out. If they want to join the union, the next time that they show up, they either sign the form and hand it to me, or they're not allowed in the meeting. But we welcome the always to come there and have the experience of what goes on in the local chapter.
All right. See where we differ a little bit. I have our one business meeting. Usually I try and make it for late April, which we elect our local board. We also elect our delegates for the district to go to the state convention. We used to years ago have a fall booster meeting, which I would make sometime after national or after the fall booster meeting for the state. We haven't done that in I don't know how many years. I did just have one this past fall. I don't know if I'll have to look at my budget and see if that's something that we can afford to keep doing. And as the president, I plan the meetings. So I pick a tentative date. I reach out to my NSS representative. I reach out to the state board representative that I have and make sure that that date corresponds with their schedule. And I pick a location that we're going to have it at. We try and rotate throughout the district where we have it. At least I do. I know other districts in North Carolina have it in one central location usually for the district, and they stay at that one location.
Ours is our county does multiple meetings throughout the year. Most of them are open. We do close for business, but we invite everybody to come, and then we have our annual in April. The last one we had just last week in the middle of the week, the day after our special edition last week. We submitted some of the resolutions we're putting forth for our annual meeting in April. So that way they have time to review them and go over them, maybe ask questions to the people who wrote them and stuff like that. Where I submitted my 10 resolutions that I've made so far. And no, none of them are 4 pages like the one I did in 2022. I learned my lesson that the people at state and national convention are not going to read 4 pages of a resolution, even if it is as airtight as you can possibly make it. But the fact is, participating in your local area meetings is very vital to the operation of the union. There are a lot of regional locals, and we call them locals, but they're really like county or little regions. Like for Michigan, the entire UP, the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, the entire part north of the part that looks like a hand is one regional area that is considered one county coverage. Even though there's a bunch of counties up there, it's one unit. And then from there are smaller sectors that have 3, 4, 5 counties in them. Or you're like mine, you have one county involved in it. We're big enough, we have enough people participating to have just the single county. And for our state, if a county does not have enough participation to elect enough people to cover each board position for that county unit, then the state takes over that county and merges it with another. And that's why we have regions where they have 3, 4, 5 counties in one region, because people are not participating. And the biggest thing you have to do is participate. And like they said, that is your in to making changes with resolutions, whether they're binding or non-binding. Running for delegate for your state, that happens at your annual meeting. And then running for national, that has to be submitted. I think it's 50 or 60 days. You guys can correct me on that, before your state convention. So you'd want to be.
Yeah, Pennsylvania is 45 days.
Okay. So 45 for Pennsylvania. Some states have, say, 60. So carry your discretion to find out what it is. And the delegate ballots for your state come in your state paper. The delegate ballots for national come in your national paper. You can also, if you have access to them online, you can print them off online and submit them that way. And they go to your state secretary or your county/local secretary that's listed in the magazine. But if you want to participate, you want to make change, you want to see things happen, this is how you do it. This is how you get in and you help affect the path of this union. Not just for this year, not just for next year, but you could submit a resolution that gets passed all the way up and gets put in the contract. That could be permanent, could last 20 years, things like that. You want to make change, that's how you do it.
Well, I just wanted to say.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, where in Michigan you guys have your delegates for the local unit for the state convention sent in by a nomination form in your newsletter. We elect our delegates at the business meeting. So the way we do it, at least at my meeting, is anyone that wants to be a delegate for our district at the state convention will put their name on a sign-in sheet. Once we get that sheet goes around and everyone had the opportunity to sign it, the Secretary Treasurer will read out all the names and we will put it to a vote. Do we agree with this list of names to be delegates for our district to the state convention with a yay or nay vote?
And I just want to go ahead and clarify for James, according to the newspaper that was put out in March, nominations, it's in section B, number 2, nominations must be received to the prearranged post office box for national delegates, by the way, at least 50 days prior to the opening of the state convention.
Thank you.
Not a problem.
No.
Thank you. I thought it was right there. It was either 50 or 60. I wanted to be sure, but thank you for making sure it was accurate.
I might have to talk to my state secretary then.
Well,
we're still on 45.
Phil, that's your state delegates?
No, that's national delegate.
National.
That's from the national
National
magazine.
delegate.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, state
right.
delegates we elect at our local meetings. We don't go through the
local.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
But in the state of Michigan, you can sign up early for being a delegate. But yes, if there's still spaces left and you're at the annual meeting, you can step up at the annual meeting is what I'm saying, what I was trying to say, but you can put in ahead of time.
Okay.
Now, to go back to Kristen's long-winded letter, it's amazing that this gentleman observed the nuances of the political scene at a convention. And this is what gets me, is that they want more participation in the union, but they want participation at the dues level, because participation further up than the dues level would not allow for some of these people to stay in the positions they are in. They don't want new blood, they don't want new ideas, and they definitely don't want to be challenged in regards to their positions on their state boards or their NSS assignments. And this is what gets me. If you want participation, if you want to inject new blood and new ideas in there, then you have to allow these people, you have to mentor them to work their way up, instead of stifling them and keeping them from becoming more viable members for our union. And that's the difference in our line of thinking versus what the national board is, where they want to maintain the status quo. We don't want to upset the status quo. We want to blow it up, because it's gotten us nowhere. And as long as status quo is intact, folks, I fear for this union. I really do.
Yes, Bill, that was the one thing that was brought up to me by the person that sent that to me, was their noticing that when it came for those that are looking for change.
The first step for any change in this craft and in this union is just enforcement of what we have. Enforcement of the contract, enforcement of the MOUs, enforcement of the joint statements. Sitting down and telling them you can no longer cross this line. You have danced across it enough with your incompetence. Now is the time for us to step up and tell management to stop violating the craft. Because there are carriers out there that want to do the work, that want to be involved, that want to help make the post office run smoothly. But when you have management that stifles these people, and then you have a union that silences these people, where are they going to go? They're going to go to McDonald's and make the same amount of money. They're going to go work at Starbucks, make the same amount of money. And maybe they'll get into one of the unionized Starbucks where the people haven't been fired for trying to unionize. Getting people involved means also taking care of them at the lowest level. And it starts with our national steward system.
And let me point out, James is correct. We already have the language in writing to protect us, but we're not getting the protection that we're paying for. This is the worst abuse of power that I've ever seen in my life, in regards to, let me collect my dues, let me bump my salary up to $188,000 a year, but I'm going to do minimal effort in regards to protecting the people I am charged to serve. It is your duty to protect, educate, promote the craft. And the only thing you're doing is lining your pocket.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not willing to step up and take care of this craft, there are people that have a plan to take care of this craft and will step up and will make sure that this craft gets the care that they need and they so deserve for the dues that they pay into this union.
Absolutely. And that was one of the reasons why this person sent this to me to read, because it is noticed by newcomers, people that are wanting to be involved, and they're wanting to try and get on the, see things changed and made better, but then they also see where those that have been around for a long time are kind of not in support of that at all. And we all know, with all of us up here, this post office is not the same it was when we first started.
Well, I know because Ben Franklin told me this is not the way to run the business.
With my going on 9.5 years with the Postal Service, it's not the same when I started as an RCA in December of 2014. It's not the same. I know it's not the same, you know.
Yeah, it's not the same for me either. I used to be able to run a whole route in my 2004 Honda CRV. You know, my back seat was full of cased mail and DPS. Trunk was full of packages. Now I wouldn't be able to even do 2 trips. I'd have to do 3. It's completely changed, and I don't have as much DPS. I barely get a tray of cased mail every day.
Yeah. It's, I've got Monday, for example, I was wondering how I was going to fit all those. I had a double stroller and a large gaming chair, and not to mention several other large boxes that I was surprised I got everything in the LLV. And I remember with, having a 2-door 02 Ford Explorer when I first started, and I had 12 tubs of mail I took out with me. And now, I go have most of the time this week, it was a half a tray of pull down, maybe a full tray of pull down. Monday, I think I had, or Wednesday, because we had our local newspapers, I had a tray and a half of pull down, but a tray and a half of DPS, or 1 tray of DPS. Tuesday I had a tray and a half of DPS and a half a tray of pull down. It's.
I'm
so
happy
old.
when I have less than 4.
I'm so old. I can remember when we didn't have scanners. We know what the hell a scanner was. The hell? You freaking youngsters, you.
He had a logbook of every tracking number.
Hold on. I gotta go change my Depends. I think I wet myself.
I know carriers that are still delivering out of a car. And what used to be filled with trays of mail is now filled with parcels. But the biggest thing here is there are still trays of mail. Yes, we've transitioned into a combi department where we deliver both mail and parcels. We're not going to become a parcel delivery company in the next 20 years because we're still going to have all those documents we still have to deliver certified. The only thing I could see changing in the Postal Service, especially with the price raises in first class mail that they continue to do, is probably putting tracking numbers on letters. And that would probably be what they consider us turning over to a completely parcel delivery service, is that we actually turn our letter delivery service into a scannable item like a certified, and everything just becomes a certified tracking system, whether you get a signature or not, with a waiver of signature like they do on the expresses. That's about the only way we're going to get rid of the paper delivery that we're doing.
I wouldn't go that far, but
the politicians would never buy all the ads for that.
No, and I mean, we already scan mail with SPM scans, so
yeah, I was going to say most of your mail already has a
barcode on it.
A spray code on it, yeah.
Well, let's not forget the papers, the political ads, your marriage mail, and all those things, your advos, what you call them. All those things wouldn't be included in there. So, those are numbers that some people really depend on.
Yeah, let's not give them any ideas, James, please.
Yes.
Sorry. I was just thinking of raising my evaluation with more scans. That's all.
The post office would negotiate that one out.
Probably. We'd probably go to a volume factor of the number of parcels we have, removing the scan system.
All right, guys, you ready to wrap this up for this week?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
All right. How about Toasty? Your final thoughts for this evening?
April showers bring May flowers, so just be careful. Turn around, don't drown. I know the weather's getting crazy. We've had tornadoes, we've had snowstorms in some places. It's been kind of nice here where I'm at, but just remember, stay safe. And like Bill says, you're the most important delivery.
Josh?
The hard part's over. I don't know by raise of hands. Saturday, Monday, possibly into Tuesday. How many of you are still counting inverted in your head? Like Toasty said, the weather's starting to get nicer, warmer, unstable. Be careful out there. Don't get overwhelmed. If you do, take a step back, take a deep breath, and step back in. Have a good week. We'll catch you next time. James?
As Toasty said, yes, the weather has been bad. I know there's been fatalities due to tornadoes and stuff like that. It's only going to get more severe as we go along, as we transition into spring. Even though right now at my window it doesn't look like that with that dreaded S word that Michiganders find as a swear word. But just remember, every day is important. Every day you wake up is important. Make the best out of it. If you want to make changes, you have to participate. You have to participate in your local, county, state, and national in order to make changes with this union. It's the only way. You can't just make changes on social media. Social media doesn't make changes. Getting involved does. Being a delegate does. And the only way you can do that is to run for that position. Advertise it on social media that you're running for that to be a delegate. Get your word out there. Let people see what kind of changes you'd like to see in the Postal Service. Because at the end of the day, we're all in this together. Bill, your thoughts?
Well, I'm reminded of a picture that I saw where a postal Jeep was on fire, a POV. And the lady explained it was her daughter that, was checking smoke out from underneath the vehicle. And by the time she turned back to the front of the vehicle, her front seat was involved. Of course, the first thing is I came to mind was she safe? Because that was my only concern. I didn't care about the mail, the packages and all that, but the daughter was upset that the fire spread so quickly she lost her purse, which, is a pain in the ass for people to replace those items. But the fact of the matter was she was safe, and that's all I cared about. You can replace the vehicle, the hell with the mail, get home safe to your loved ones every day. And that's my credo, is that I don't care what goes on during the course of the day. If you have to backtrack for a parcel or whatever, that, just takes your day and screws it up to the point where you just want to scream. Get done, do your job as efficiently as possible, safely. Go back, clock out, go home, because you are the most important delivery of the day. And I truly mean that. I don't ever want to see another announcement that a carrier was killed on a route because of a driver passing them or, clipping them on the side of the road, tractor trailers. It's just disheartening. I mean, we have a hard enough job putting up with management, putting up with our leadership. Get home. At the end of the day, get home, because those people love you, they care about you, and they depend on you. So remember, you are the most important delivery of the day.
Thank you, guys. Yes, definitely you are. The weather is definitely interesting. As James says, he's been getting snow. I really don't have much, and I'm further north than he is, and we weren't getting any snow. But yeah, it's that, spring is coming up officially this next week, and the weather gets a little hairy, and want everybody be safe, get home. Our hearts go out to that office that lost the carrier on the route due to a heart attack that management failed to notice stationary event from. Um, we don't have all the information, but unfortunately, our hearts and thoughts go out to that office and to that carrier's family. And on that note, guys, we will be back next week. So everybody have a good week. Stay safe. Get home safely to your loved ones. We love you all.
I thought that was the Michigan accent.
Could be too.
Northern Michigan.
That's it. Get Bill riled up again.